Almost every day. Yes, that's right. Cabbage is definitely a good vegetable. However, how you eat it is more important. Do I need to be careful? Even though it's a vegetable, it might have been fine when you were young, but as you age, your body changes. Especially when your kidneys or digestive system are weakened. How you eat determines your health. Have you ever sat at a familiar table, picking up a piece of steaming, boiled cabbage, and suddenly had this thought cross your mind? Are these foods I eat every day really making me healthier? Or are they quietly harming me without me knowing? This question might sound extravagant, and perhaps even a bit pessimistic, especially to those who have believed all their lives in the simple principle that eating bland, lots of vegetables, and living a simple life are good for health. But as an internist for over 30 years, this question has haunted me longer and more persistently than any other chronic illness. My name is Lee Yun-woo. I've worked long hours at a hospital in Seoul and have seen countless heartbreaking scenes. Among those who visit my office, the most weary-looking are not those who have lived extravagant lives, but rather those who have practiced strict self-restraint. They don't drink doctor. They say cabbage is good for your health. It's good for your stomach and heart. So I eat it, don't smoke, and don't eat salty foods. They eat plenty of vegetables, especially cabbage. And then, almost in a whisper, they ask me, "Doctor, what on earth have I done wrong?" I still remember one autumn evening. As the hospital corridors grew quiet, Mrs. Kim Jong-suk sat before me. She seemed to represent a previous generation, diligent, frugal, and always putting her family before herself. She told me that for years, boiled cabbage had been the centerpiece of her dinner. I'd heard that cabbage was good for the stomach, good for the heart, and low in calories. I thought eating that way would lead to a long and healthy life. But the test results in front of me told a different story. Her kidney function was declining faster than normal, and her blood potassium levels were already above the safety limit. She had no idea why. This is by no means an uncommon case. According to the Korean Society of Nephrology, approximately 1 in 60 people over the age of 60 suffer from some degree of kidney failure, but more than half of them are unaware of their condition. What's remarkable is that many of them maintain a very healthy diet, plenty of vegetables, low salt intake, and low protein intake. While this may seem contradictory on the surface, it's a reality I've been in for a long time, and one that's all the more painful. For most people, cabbage is a symbol of health. It's a staple on our dinner tables, whether it's kimchi, boiled side dishes, or soup. It's deeply connected to the image of a frugal diet and a simple life. Yet, almost no one asks this question. As our bodies change with age and our kidneys aren't what they used to be, can we still handle the same amount of waste as we did in our 30s and 40s? Our bodies don't scream right away. They simply endure. And it's precisely that silence that makes us let our guard down. I, too, once believed that telling patients to eat lightly and eat plenty of vegetables was enough. But as time passed, I realized I hadn't fully said that. There are stories that can't be told in a few minutes of consultation, and context that can't be captured in a single sheet of paper. Eating habits passed down through generations, health tips repeated on TV and social media, and beliefs that almost no one questions. Cabbage is a prime example. 72-year-old Park Young-soo once told me, "I eat cabbage every day, even drinking the water it's boiled in. I thought it was purifying my body." He didn't realize that this habit was adding another burden to his already exhausted kidneys every night. When he was brought to the hospital with severe palpitations and shortness of breath in the middle of the night, his family couldn't easily believe that the cause was linked to such a familiar vegetable. What I find most deeply concerning is not cabbage itself, but the information gap between good for you and right for me. Older adults are rarely told that their bodies have already changed, that what was once good for them can become dangerous if left unadjusted. According to a National Impact Survey, more than 60% of older Koreans believe that more vegetables are good for them, and few believe that vegetables can be a burden on the kidneys. I didn't bring this up today to scare you. I simply want you to reconsider the question I posed at the beginning. What is this food I'm eating doing to my body now? In the following stories, I'll share something I feel should have been clear a long time ago. Why cabbage, if eaten incorrectly, can cause kidney damage in just one night, and why many people only realize this until it's too late. If you or a family member is already over 60 and cabbage is a regular part of your daily diet, please listen to this story. Even small changes in your eating habits, with a little more understanding, can help preserve your kidneys for years to come. If you feel this story could be helpful to your parents, grandparents, or yourself, please subscribe to the channel and join us in discussing future senior health stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to learn more about foods that may seem healthy but require kidney care, please leave a comment with a number 1. Thank you for listening. Now, let's move on to the next story. If you've gotten this far, a very natural question is probably on your mind. What's wrong with cabbage? It's not greasy, sweet, or salty, and it's recommended for all sorts of ailments. That's why I want to slow down and calmly explain what's really going on in the bodies of older adults, especially in the kidneys when cabbage is served too often and in the wrong ways. Nutritionally, cabbage is definitely a good vegetable. It's rich in dietary fiber, vitamins C and K, and antioxidants. Medical textbooks present yang excretion as a food that aids digestion, reduces inflammation, and promotes cardiovascular health. However, textbooks often talk about an ideal or youthful body. The body I encounter every day in my clinic has endured decades, and each organ is no longer functioning as it once did. The first key is, of course, potassium. Cabbage isn't the vegetable with the highest potassium content. However, when it increases and is repeated daily, it's a different story, especially in people with weakened kidneys. The kidneys maintain a constant potassium level in the blood. When the kidneys are healthy, excess potassium can be easily excreted through urine. However, epidemiological studies conducted in Korea show that the average glomerular filtration rate declines significantly after age 60, even without a clear diagnosis of renal failure. In other words, many people are living with potentially weakened kidneys without even realizing it. In this state, if a certain amount of potassium is received daily, the body initially tries to maintain its balance. People may feel slightly more tired, have trouble sleeping, or feel their heart beat faster for no reason. However, most people dismiss this as a symptom. The problem is that physiologically, potassium already affects the electrical conduction of the heart. This risk of arrhythmia is particularly high at night, when the body's rhythm slows down. A second, less frequently discussed, factor is the sulfur compounds and glucosinolates found in cabbage. While these are beneficial in moderation, excessive consumption can cause abdominal discomfort, gas, and intestinal irritation, especially in the elderly with weakened digestive systems. This can lead to decreased appetite, decreased water intake, and even prolonged mild digestive problems. In people with weakened kidneys, even these seemingly minor fluid electrolyte imbalances can place additional strain on the kidneys. One of the most common misconceptions I encounter in my clinic is the belief that boiled cabbage water is good for the body. When you boil cabbage, many minerals are released into the water, including potassium. Drinking this water means you absorb those minerals much more quickly in liquid form. This may not be a problem for young, healthy people. However, for older adults, especially those with high blood pressure, diabetes, or frequent leg cramps, this could be a burden on the kidneys. According to a national impact survey, more than 40% of older Koreans drink boiled water at least once to avoid losing its benefits. However, most of them have never been told that this habit can actually be harmful for those with weakened kidneys. I once treated 70-year-old Choi Eun-young. She had been told it helped her sleep, so she drank boiled cabbage water every night before bed. Then she developed severe palpitations and nausea, and tests revealed abnormally high blood potassium levels. After hearing the explanation, she sat in silence for a long time before saying, "If I had known, I wouldn't have drank it." What I really want to convey here is this. The question isn't whether cabbage is good or bad. The question is how well your body can handle it. If your kidneys are even slightly weakened, your body can no longer tolerate habitual excesses. And cabbage is so familiar and so safe that it's the easiest food to overeat. If you're wondering, how do I know if my kidneys are weak? The honest answer is this. You can't tell by feeling alone. That's why understanding this mechanism is crucial. This is crucial. Only then can we stop mindlessly eating out of habit and make choices based on understanding. In the following story, I'll explain specifically which common ways we consume cabbage in our daily lives can put our kidneys at risk sooner than we realize. I encourage you to examine each meal you eat both yours and those you care about, for yourself. Now that you understand why cabbage can be a burden on weakened kidneys, it's even more important to confront the eating habits we're so accustomed to in our daily lives. Kidneys rarely suffer from a single meal. The problem is repetitive habits. When habits we believe to be new and therefore haven't changed continue to the point where our bodies can no longer handle them, our kidneys quietly collapse. One of the most common scenes I encounter in my clinic is elderly people eating boiled cabbage for dinner. A small bowl of rice, a plate of boiled cabbage, and a bowl of cabbage water, a side dish that's a shame to throw away. They say it's the perfect dinnertime treat because it's light, comforting, and unlikely to cause weight gain. However, evening is the most dangerous time for the kidneys. When you fall asleep, the kidney's filtration rate naturally slows down in accordance with your circadian rhythm. The potassium that enters during this time remains in the blood longer. Healthy kidneys can somehow maintain a balance, but in weakened kidneys, this accumulation alone can cause heart rhythm disturbances overnight. I once treated 71-year-old Lee Man-soo. He prided himself on his exemplary dinner diet. He ate no meat or pickled vegetables, only boiled cabbage and rice. One night, he woke up with a pounding heart and cold sweats, and was taken to the hospital. The test results revealed an arrhythmia. Reflecting on his eating habits, there were no generally bad foods. However, months of repeated cabbage-heavy dinners ultimately pushed his kidneys beyond their capacity. An even more dangerous habit is drinking boiled cabbage water. Many people believe that it's a waste to throw away the water, as it contains all the nutrients. Medically speaking, however, this is the fastest way to get minerals into the body. Potassium dissolved in water is absorbed almost immediately. Especially if you drink it before bed or in the evening, that potassium has no way to escape in time. I once met a 68-year-old woman, Han Jiang, who drank boiled cabbage water every night. She suffered from nausea and extreme fatigue, and her blood potassium level was found to be high. She said in a very small voice, "I thought it was the best thing for my kidneys." I can't help but talk about cabbage, kimchi, and especially kimchi. Kimchi is a staple of the Korean diet, and I know its cultural significance better than anyone. However, for seniors with weak kidneys, the habit of eating McGinney kimchi is by no means light. In addition to the potassium in the cabbage itself, the sodium added during the pickling process forces the kidneys to work harder to maintain fluid and blood pressure balance. It's a double whammy, with both potassium and sodium exerting a burden. Even without realizing it, kimchi alone can be enough to support your kidneys. I'm reminded of 74-year-old Park Soon. She didn't eat fried food or red meat, but she always ate kimchi with every meal. She had some stiff ankles and frequent bathroom visits at night, but attributed this to her age. Test results showed that her kidney function had already declined significantly. She adjusted the amount and timing of her kimchi intake, and her condition stabilized. However, she said, "If only I had known this sooner." Another lesser-known but cautionary measure is eating a lot of raw cabbage. Many people believe that eating raw cabbage is the best way to preserve vitamins. However, raw cabbage is coarse and high in sulfur, which can easily cause abdominal discomfort and digestive problems in older people. When digestion becomes difficult, water intake naturally decreases, resulting in a concentration of potassium and other minerals in the blood. In this situation, weakened kidneys are much more susceptible to overload. The most frightening aspect is that the early warning signs are often so vague. Feeling a little more tired, having trouble sleeping at night, frequent cramps at night, and the occasional heart palpitations. Most people don't connect it to their diet. Clinical statistics show that a significant percentage of hyperkalemia in the elderly is discovered incidentally after heart complications have already developed. I don't expect you to remember the whole story, but I want you to ask yourself just one question. What habits are familiar to you or your family? Kidneys don't break down overnight. They gradually deteriorate because we don't change them when our bodies signal them. And the saddest thing is that many people only realize this when their kidneys can no longer handle it. Whenever I hear about these dangers, many people immediately feel fear. So, should I stop eating cabbage altogether? Every time I ask this question, I always stop and say slowly and clearly, no food on its own kills the kidneys. It's not food that's driving a kidney to become a single organ, but a diet that doesn't fit our already altered body. Cabbage isn't the enemy. The real problem lies in maintaining old habits without acknowledging that your body has changed. In my clinical practice, I've seen many patients maintain stable kidney function for years simply by adjusting their eating habits, without completely stopping yang excretion. The most important factor is the timing of consumption. Cabbage is not suitable for dinner for the elderly, especially those with high blood pressure or diabetes, or those with a history of edema or nighttime restlessness. During the day, the body is active, and the kidneys have relatively ample time to process potassium. Many patients report that simply shifting yang excretion to lunch eliminated their nighttime palpitations. The second factor is the cooking method. There's nothing wrong with yang excretion in itself. However, after boiling, you must discard the water. It contains dissolved minerals, especially potassium. Drinking boiled water with a mindset of discarding the nutrients is actually placing a burden on the kidneys. If you want to eat more safely, you can also boil it briefly, discard the first water, and recook it in fresh water. This method is already known to significantly reduce potassium, but not many people actually follow this advice. The third is quantity. A common mistake among the elderly is overeating foods they believe are good for their health, often in excessive amounts. Cabbage is no exception. It's much safer to eat it in moderation, not as a staple, but as a side dish. Weak kidneys don't fear a single meal per SC. What they can't handle is the same stimulus repeated day after day. I can't help but mention kimchi. It's realistically difficult to completely cut it out, and I don't want to emphasize its necessity. However, it's entirely possible to control it. Reduce the quantity and avoid it in the evening. If you experience unusually high thirst, cramps, or frequent bathroom visits after eating a lot of kimchi, it's a clear signal from your body. That's a warning that your kidneys are in trouble. Another thing I always emphasize is not to completely trust the feeling that everything is fine. The kidneys are very patient organs. They don't show obvious symptoms until a considerable amount of time has passed. Many people dismiss things like unexplained fatigue, frequent nighttime cramps, shallow sleep, and fleeting heart palpitations as insignificant, but they can actually be early signs. Only basic tests like blood creatinine, potassium, and glomerular filtration can accurately tell you where your body is right now. 73-year-old Jong Min-ho comes to mind. He has maintained stable kidney function for nearly 4 years by following the simple principles I mentioned, adjusting his eating schedule, preparation, and portion sizes. He didn't need any additional medication or extreme dietary restrictions. He told me, "I never knew such small changes could make such a big difference." Finally, I want you to remember, eating for seniors isn't about following trendy health advice, but about listening to your current physical condition. Once you understand this, diet is no longer something to fear. It becomes the most realistic and proactive way to protect your kidneys. And if you've learned this, don't keep it to yourself. A word spoken at the right time can protect your family from a potentially significant danger they may not have known about. As this story draws to a close, I'd like to ask you to pause for a moment. I'm not asking you to memorize more medical information. I'm simply asking you to think about yourself and the precious people around you. Because over the past 30 years as an internist, what has bothered me most has not been the critical illness itself, but those moments when I had to look a patient in the eye and say, if only I had known a little sooner. Many elderly patients come into my office with faces a mixture of fatigue and confusion. They don't understand how they got to this point. They've done everything they thought was right. They've eaten lightly, eaten plenty of vegetables, avoided meat and fatty foods, and followed the advice of friends and family on TV and the internet. For them, boiled vegetables like cabbage and kimchi symbolize safety. So when their kidneys began to fail, they didn't blame the food on their diet, but rather on age and fate. Because of this misunderstanding, too many people miss the opportunity to turn things around. Here, I like to make an honest confession, not as a doctor, but as a person. For a long time, I too have simply told my patients to eat less salty food and eat healthier.